Visualization is an overlooked part of drawing. Most artists want to rely less on construction and get better at drawing from imagination, but you rarely see this topic discussed or talked about. Here's a short clip from one of my courses on Gumroad about improving the skill of visualization, and just a few tips and ways of thinking about your drawing differently. I'm a big advocate of the idea that actually to improve at drawing, most people just need to try to change their attitude towards it rather than necessarily grinding away at a technical skill. Here it is, I hope you enjoy, and it's just one module of many. So visualize. Avoid drawing like this. You see what I'm doing there? Line by line. I call this sequential drawing. You are proceeding from A to Z to Z and hoping to find it on the page, hoping that an image will just appear if you keep going, as if you were doing a jigsaw puzzle. You're using existing lines as the primary guide when you do this to suggest what to draw next. That's okay to do, but the result is often this. You end up with drawings that are stiff and awkward. So why do you get the poor results? Because you're approaching things sequentially without any plan. So you start here, then here, then here, and you're just seeing how it evolves. When you work sequentially, you're trying to make every area that you draw look as good as possible. You start here, you think, oh, this head's going to be great. And you think, this chest is going to be great. Then you think, this arm is going to be great. The problem with this is, it's like writing a book and trying to make every paragraph you write explain everything about the book. The paragraph is there as part of a whole. It's not there to do all the work. And drawing sequentially means that you're unconsciously telling yourself, if this is going to be really good, this part needs to do all the work. I should show more of it. So I'm going to draw an arm holding a stick. I'll make sure I draw the whole arm and I'll draw it as well as possible. For this reason, drawing this way causes limbs to be extended like this and to be brought out from behind places where they should be. Just as a copy. You see, I've just jumped there to another part. I haven't finished it off because I'm intentionally trying to hide some of it. Not hiding very much of it, but I am hiding some of it. If I want to draw an arm on the other side, the tendency is to want to explain it all and draw it all. But instead, I'll do that. To go really fast now, but the point is you can see what I'm doing is that I'm jumping around and I'm intentionally trying not to draw the next thing in the chain. You see, that pose is more interesting. Just continue this on. This pose is more interesting than this one because I wasn't trying to show as much as possible of each of the limbs. So how can we prevent sequential drawing? Basically, the answer is to spend time visualizing first. When you don't visualize, you draw the default pose. This is a default pose. And this is a default pose or item, depending on what you're trying to draw. So the default pose is the most straightforward pose or the pose that you see most often. So in this chair example, when you draw line by line, you start off by drawing this leg, which is fine, and then you build out from there and you end up with this chair. But when you do this, you notice how you're naturally zooming in. Every bit that I'm drawing, I'm looking at that bit and I can't see the rest. That is an issue. If you start with this leg, you don't end up with this chair because there is no part of this chair that looks like that. This is something to really, really take away from this lesson. The lines on the page are helping you. They help you understand perspective, but they're also closing off options. To decide means to cut off options. That's what the root of the word in Latin. So when you draw this, you have cut off the option of drawing this. That's why it's important to visualize first. What's the alternative? You spend a full minute on the timer visualizing or trying to visualize what it is before you draw it. That's what happens when you draw line by line. If you just sit and I really mean put a timer on for a minute and do not touch the pen, and you really think about what you're going to draw, you'd be quite surprised by what you can draw. That can go on the checklist. Have I spent 1 minute on a timer visualizing before I begin? Most people spend no time at all trying to visualize, so 1 minute, although it doesn't sound like a lot, is a vast improvement on most people's process. By visualizing, you generate choices, and then you discard them without ever actually making a line. If I'm thinking about drawing a car on this piece of paper, I can look and I can decide, oh no, I don't want to draw that. No, I don't want to draw that. That's really efficient because you're not having to waste time doing this and then erasing and adding and changing your mind. It looks like you're doing nothing, but you're actually doing most of the work before you do the lines. So by visualizing first, you imagine at least partially a more interesting pose. Interesting poses won't be completely found on the page, but must be decided beforehand. Sometimes you must take a mental leap to the other side without laying every stone on your path. What if, one of those people who says, I can't visualize, and definitely can't visualize a full pose. You can use stepping stones to build context. At some point, you're going to have to leap between those stepping stones that you're laying, or step between them, but you can use them. You were actually doing this before when you used individual lines unknowingly. When you drew this, that's what you were doing. You were laying stepping stones, but they don't have 3 dimensions. These are just a single line, so they're not that helpful. So you've already been doing this, but now in this process, your stepping stones are forms, not lines. The stones themselves are more tangible. So you're not trying to visualize the whole pose, just one form at a time. So we might start off with something like this. And then what I want you to do is jump. You pause and you jump to the next stepping stone. Rather than continuing down, you jump and you go, okay, I want to draw the feet now. I've taken a minute to visualize on the timer. Now I've drawn the feet. Okay, it's easier for me to fill in the gaps. You need something to aim for when you jump. Once you've drawn a stepping stone, what's your next action? When you've drawn one, that's here, then you pause. You stop and you put the pencil down. Look at the stepping stones available to you on the page. You try and visualize something that fits with it. And then you draw what you're visualizing. So maybe I draw this. And then I pause again and I ask, does this go with that? They're not actually connected by any lines, but do they look like they go together? Possibly, but in some poses that maybe could happen, but it's not very good. So pause, check your work, erase it and start again. So then we draw this. We draw the next stepping stone. We check, do they fit together? Yeah, it looks like they do. Okay, well then I'll draw the next one. Now we've got a third one. So we pause, we check, do they look like they go? Roughly. Okay, and then we continue. And we're doing this constantly. We're laying the stones and then we're making the step across. Let's wrap this up now, but the important thing to take away, in any drawing, the form lives here. Form lives between the lines. That's the message. Form lives between the lines. There's nothing wrong with using the lines you already have as stepping stones, but stopping to pause, check and visualize is an essential part of improving your poses. The form between the lines should be the thing that you're focusing on, not the lines themselves. I'll see you in the next lesson. So this is just one idea, one small module from the larger course, and actually I will be exploring visualization more fully in my book, which comes out on February 19th. As I say, these principles apply to drawing anything, but specifically in the book they're talking about how to add clothing. And yeah, I hope you really enjoyed this and you got something useful from it, and it's helping people to take some of the anxiety out of drawing and just feel a bit more confident. Thanks very much.